Okay, I'm here today with Nikki. I'd like to throw it over to you to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Ali. My name is Nikki Heyder. I am a counsellor and a yoga teacher, and I work predominantly with women who are experiencing a whole range of issues from eating disorders and disordered eating through to anxiety, low self-worth, and addiction issues as well.
Thank you for the contribution you bring to the planet. We definitely need more of you. I've often commented on, there's more need in community than there ever will be counsellors, doctors, psychologists, etc. So thank you for everything that you bring.
Thank you.
My first question to you as part of this campaign is, can you share with us what is one mental health tactic you yourself use just to maintain your well-being?
Sure. Something that I really, and I guess this kind of integrates both yoga and cognitive therapy into the two, is understanding and recognizing our thoughts are just thoughts. It's a really beautiful skill to develop. This could be via meditation or it could be via journaling. And so something that's really helped me over the years in tackling an overthinking mind, or the need of being in control, or fretting when something and low self-worth. I ask myself a series of questions, or I sit in meditation and I ask myself a series of questions which are pertaining to this thought that I can't get out of my head. And usually I'll write down the thought. So anyone can do this at home. They can write down the thought. It could be, something like, I don't know, any limiting belief that we have in the moment. I'm not good at this. Nobody understands me. Whatever it might be, you might have this overarching thought that you can't get out of your mind. And just to ask yourself, how did this thought come to me? Is the first question. So what was happening around it? Like, how did this come to be? And then asking yourself, am I entertaining this thought out of habit? Or is it 100% a fact? And what are the facts that support it? So actually list them down, like, is this factual? And then ask yourself, if I was to ask somebody else if they thought the same thing about me, would they have the same opinion? And if not, what could their opinion be, right? And when we have that answer, we can start to say, okay, well, am I overinflating this thought? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, then we can kind of say, okay, well, is this thought just a thought? Or is it actually true? And usually by that simple exercise, it's just simple cognitive restructuring, but we get so stuck in our loops that we can think that it's so real. And if you can get into the habit of just asking yourself these simple questions, writing it down first and then doing it in meditation, you start to create a detachment from your thoughts. And you start to realize that they're not facts. And if they're not facts and they don't actually have control over you, and they're just something that's surfacing that we can acknowledge, and eventually we can also allow to go. So I think that's a really important tool that's practical, that has helped me over the years, but also helps a lot of my clients as well.
Yeah, fantastic. I can definitely hear the clinical psychology in you. But if we do this work, no doubt it would pay off. And we can all, like, coming from an acting background, they make us do quite a lot of self-awareness techniques. So I can certainly relate to the payoff as to if we create these habits and work on them every day, you will see that growth long term. And no doubt.
Absolutely.
It's a fantastic technique that you've described. So thank you so much for sharing.
No, that's okay. And I think it's important as well, like outside of the clinical space, that's what meditation is for. But you also look at, say, Buddhist philosophy, and, there is the saying of our thoughts create the world, our thoughts create reality, which is something along those lines, which is what is quoted from Buddha. And it's the same thing. It's like, if I'm focusing on a thought that isn't true, but it's taking up all of my headspace, then I'm going to govern my action according to that thought. And therefore my reality becomes that. And so it's like, well, hang on a minute. Do I have a choice? And is this thought actually true? Does it actually have to be the thought that governs my life? Or can there be another option? And usually there is always another option, because if someone else can have a different perspective, then your thought isn't necessarily true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Very deep and wise. I like it. Okay, my next question for you is, we are in a space now where, well, the silly season has kicked off. So it's interesting to see international borders opening up, which is fantastic. But there is a peak of mental health issues that have manifested come 2021.
Yes.
No doubt it's been happening for a while. But my question to you is, what is a message of hope that you may have for someone who may be feeling like they're in a whirlwind of pain? It could be, they've experienced a panic attack for the first time. It could be that some of this season of change has popped up with grief and loss. I'm not sure, we don't know everyone's journey right now, but what insights can you share for us that could be a message of hope for someone who may need to hear it right now?
For sure. I think for me, and something that I enjoy hearing, and I know my clients also, is a nice reminder is, there's that saying, if you're going through hell, keep going. And I think it's just the reminder that everything is temporary. Nothing is permanent, and we know that as a fact. And there are many times in our lives, it may not be exactly the same now, but there are times in our lives that undoubtedly we have been in and thought, will this ever end? I know that I have been through multiple times moments like that in my own life, where I thought, oh my God, am I ever going to get out of this? Is this ever going to end? Is this ever going to stop? And once again, when you're in it, it feels never ending. But then time keeps changing and keeps moving, and we keep moving with it. And eventually that thing is a memory, and that thing is often also a lesson. So I think, there is that notion of, I know it's difficult and I know it's hard, but life is hard and difficult at times. And if we can normalize the fact that life is joyful and beautiful, but also there is suffering and pain, and to move through those moments, knowing that we've moved through previous moments before and we've gotten through the other side. If that is any, message of hope, to just keep going, and to know that it will change, because it will, it has to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And look, we can forget about how do you say it? When we're in these whirlwinds, we can forget, or our insight can narrow down. We can forget that we've had other experiences that we've seen through, or that there is more than just this bubble that we're living in, which kind of taps into that first insight that you had for us as well. What type of insight are we focusing on? Because there are some that can certainly support us and empower us in these difficult times, for sure.
Definitely. And I think it's also useful for people to understand that it's also a very normal response of the nervous system. When we're stressed, we become tunnel vision, we become hyper focused on that thing, because we do that in order to survive. It's a survival mechanism of ours. So to be able to consciously kind of go, okay, I know I'm doing this, but I know I can do this, to try to do that, to become more objective and broaden our perspective, we can step back from our lives and once again become the observer, right? And go, okay, I've kind of been here before, and I know I can navigate it. I know it's hard. I accept that it's hard, but also I know I'm also capable.
Yeah.
So just to, have that perspective as well.
Yeah, well, thank you. What a great response. My final question to you is, I mentioned before, this is particularly a suicide prevention initiative that we've been focusing on, which broadly, if we take that broad perspective on it, trauma. So much of us have gone through trauma, and so many of us have survived through trauma as well.
Yes.
What I'm collecting here as part of the campaign is, what are some possible action steps or insights that could be helpful if there is someone who may be struggling in particular with suicide ideation? There are some helpful steps and directions that, as a bystander or a support, that we can put in play. I'm wondering if you have any insights that you would like to share as part of this campaign.
I mean, if it's someone who's experiencing suicidal ideation and they recognize that within them, definitely to seek help. I mean, I think there's that shame that can be associated with the feelings of the downward spiral that we get ourselves into when we don't want to admit that we're in a dark place. But if we can find the courage to speak to someone, even if it's someone really close to us first, in order to feel safe with that, and then to eventually find professional help. I mean, as a professional, what I find is so helpful and has been helpful once again for myself, as well as for many of my clients who have been in this position, is the notion of compassion, and compassion meaning not toxic positivity and not, making everything okay and telling someone to chin up and whatever it might be, but really holding space for somebody and allowing somebody to have the full experience of their emotions without making it wrong, without making it bad, allowing a person to feel seen and heard in what they're experiencing with no judgment, and encouraging that person to be curious about their life experiences and their lived experiences and how it led them to the point where they are at now. In this process, what I find is that, especially in group therapy, which can be really powerful in this instance, is through the sharing and the awareness of what someone is experiencing, we realize that a lot of other people have similar experiences, and a lot of other people have these same thoughts of I am wrong, I am bad, whatever it might be, and there's a lot of shame there. And once that shame is spoken aloud and shared, and even not hidden anymore, it becomes so relieving, and in that is the opportunity to heal. So I do think, there can be this stigma around it of don't talk about it or keep it, like it's scary or whatever it might be, but whatever we resist persists is so true. And so don't resist it, like allow it to be something to talk about. Let it come to the surface and be normalized, so that it can be healed. Otherwise, if we suppress it, there's no way that we can help it because it's hidden. So I think it's, once again, that normalization of pain maybe is the message there. Yeah.
I love the quote that you just had, which is whatever we resist persists. I haven't thought of, I don't think I've heard that specifically, but definitely. Many whom have shared stories, have shared moments of trying to hide the pain or run away from it, and it's only being forced to have to deal with it because it's snowballed to a point that they've been cornered in and there's nowhere else to go.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, resistance, even something as simple as anxiety, if you're feeling anxious, and then I try to tell myself not to be anxious, and I'm feeling anxious, and I become anxious about not feeling anxious. Like whatever you resist, it makes it bigger. It makes it so much bigger. And then you've got anxiety about anxiety about anxiety, and it's just so big. Whereas if I can accept, I'm having anxiety right now, it doesn't define who I am, but I'm experiencing it. Okay, cool. What happens to it? It kind of isn't as big to carry anymore. It's not as heavy to hold. So it's just that realization that, shame, we could talk about shame for hours, but shame, I think, is something that, it needs to be spoken to and spoken aloud, in order to have healing. Yeah.
Well, I do acknowledge that you can talk about shame for hours, but I think that is actually a clear example of one way that you can help people. It certainly sounds like a strength of yours. And just in closing this campaign, I would like to ask you that question. Hey, if anyone has related to any of the content you've shared today, or if they want to reach out to you for more information, how could they do that?
Sure. I do see clients online via Zoom, so from all around the world. So I work with all different ages and people from everywhere. The best way to reach out to me is probably either via my website or via social media as well. So the website is just stateofsoul, one word, .co, not .com, so .co. And the Instagram is just state.of.soul. @soul_. So that's on Instagram. So people can reach out. They can book in a complimentary 15-minute discovery call to see if it's the right fit for them before we pursue with therapy. But there are also online programs and different bundles and workshops that I offer online that people can start their self-development journey as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for being a guest as part of this series, Nikki.
Thank you, Ali, so much for having me.
Yeah, it's been wonderful getting to know you, and I look forward to sharing more stories as part of this campaign shortly.
Thank you.